Bang, bang. What's up, guys? Welcome to Lunch Money, episode number 6 or 7, something like that. While Wall Street's trying to get rich, the rest of us just trying to get our lunch money right. I've got the beautiful Miss Polina Marinova, the star of the show, here with me. You guys can't tell, but she has on jeans and a jean jacket, meaning she's wearing a Canadian tuxedo today. Let's get after it. All right. What's the first topic?
Coronavirus. Some semi-good news, maybe. The White House advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, is that how you say that? Said that corona deaths will continue to climb in the U.S. this week, but they're getting close to the peak, and the rate of hospitalizations is slowing.
Bullshit.
What?
Complete bullshit.
Why?
None of these people know what they're talking about.
Okay,
here's
we're
why.
looking at the data.
But the data's wrong. That's my point, is they're all making analysis on data that's inaccurate. We haven't tested enough people to know what the actual death rate is, and we don't know how many people actually have coronavirus or don't. So you can't do accurate analysis.
Okay.
This is all guessing.
But fewer people are going to the hospital.
Allegedly. Because here's what I would say, right? Is now what they're doing is before, when they didn't have testing, what they were saying was, 10 people came in they had flu symptoms. We don't have enough tests. So we think you have COVID-19. We're going to put you in isolation. Yeah, because they'd have the test. So they add an abundance of caution. So again, I actually believe that it is going to get better. But my point of if they say, hey, there's a 2% drop, is it 2% because actually 2% less people with COVID-19 are coming in? Or now that we have more accurate testing, the data is just getting calibrated? We don't actually know.
I live with a conspiracy theorist.
It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just math. It's okay. Look, but good news, though, is I do believe that it is getting better. There is data that suggests.
What data do you have to think that it's getting better?
Well, one of the important data points is the number of people that get coronavirus and then are now getting out, because now there's been enough time after the 14-day quarantine.
Right. Now
there's people who are being released, and those numbers are actually looking pretty good. And also we're seeing in other countries who had it much earlier than we did, they're starting to get the more accurate data that we'll probably have in 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And a lot of those death rates are coming down, right? The mortality rate or morbidity rate. And so when that happens, there's a difference between mortality and morbidity, I believe, but I don't actually know the difference. We'll figure it out. So those data points actually look good as well. My guess is that the United States is a couple of weeks behind that stuff, and we'll eventually get that data as well and be more accurate.
Okay.
Good. So are we encouraged? Do we feel like bang, 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 New York City's feeling, whoo, Joe, he's got the highlight. Joe's got the highlight going.
Okay. In other news, Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter and Square, says he plans to donate $1 billion, which is just under a third of his total net.
28%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a baller. Jack's a baller.
And he's donating it to relief programs related to the coronavirus. And it's really cool how he's doing it because it's super transparent. He has a Google Doc. You can see item by item what he's donated to. And so far, I think he donated $100K to... Oh, God.
So a couple of things. Hold on. Let's back up for a second. Jack Dorsey is the CEO of Twitter and also of Square. Pretty cool. Anybody who's ever started and run 2 multi-billion-dollar companies, he's one of very, very few who have done that.
I'm the other one.
This is not the first time he's done philanthropic activity. A lot of people forget this, but in 2015 or 2016, he took $400 million worth of his Twitter shares and he gave it back to Twitter employees. People forget that he did this. He took hundreds of millions of dollars of his Twitter shares and he gave it back to employees. So he has this propensity for helping and doing things with equity, et cetera. He's not taking $1 billion right now in cash. That's the other thing people should know, right? Instead what he's doing is he's taking $1 billion of equity from Square, which is the 28% of his net worth, and he's putting it into an entity that over time will sell it off in order to fund this, correct?
Correct. And in the past, he's been criticized for doing philanthropic things.
You have to speak up. Remember, the people can't hear you. You got to talk louder.
And you got to stop interrupting me. So he's done this stuff before, but he's been criticized for kind of doing it a little bit not very transparently. So now he's putting it in a Google Doc. You can all see it.
Can we talk about how cool it is that a billionaire is giving away $1 billion using a Google spreadsheet?
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Why?
Because one, just the level of transparency is awesome. Two, the fact that it's something that's available. That's a free tool. Like he didn't go and get like an accountant and a, an auditor and like do all the things. And like, hey, I'll release like my financial report at the end of the year, et cetera. He's like, no, look, it's going to be super easy. I'm going to literally build a Google spreadsheet. I'm going to post the information there. You can click on this link whenever you want and you'll know exactly what I've done.
Yeah. And so the $100K that he donated is to America's Food Fund, and it has a GoFundMe, and you can literally look at the link. You can donate to it yourself. It's really cool.
So he only did $100,000 so far?
Yeah.
Man, he's got a long way to go. He's got $1 billion to give away and he did $100K?
Yeah, but like, look at that. Oh,
look,
wait.
How many 100Ks are there going to be?
Lots.
There's a lot, right? So they've raised $13 million now out of their $15 million
How's that possible
goal.
if he donated $100K?
Well, because he also tweeted about it and told everyone he did it. And then everyone said, hey, whatever Jack does, I'll do. I mean, he's just the man.
Yeah.
He's the man.
No, I mean, like if he donated $100K, how come they've only raised $13K?
No, they raised $13 million.
Oh my God.
It's okay. We're in the 2 comma club over here. Sometimes we got to do extra math.
Whoa.
For those of you at home, bring your calculators to lunch money because somebody over here doesn't have the greatest math skills.
I've never even seen that before.
You've never seen 2 commas before?
Definitely.
Okay, let's move on to Staples. What's going on with Staples? Other people, by the way, other people who can't do math. Speaking of people who can't do math, Staples, go ahead.
Wait, what do you mean they can't do math?
Go ahead.
Staples recently informed its landlords that it will not pay April rent for its U.S. stores, even though the locations remain open. So how are they allowed to do that? Well,
back up again, context to the story. Staples is owned by a private equity firm, I think called Sycamore, right? Sycamore Partners. These people are socialist, straight up socialist. And I can say that because last year they took $1 billion dividend out of the company. So the way a dividend like this works is think of it as $1 billion is sitting there in the bank account and the owners just say, we're going to take that. And they dividend it to themselves. They put it in their pockets. Remember, while Wall Street's trying to get rich, they took the $1 billion and they put it in their pocket. They leave the company there with the customers, all the assets, what's in the bank account, but there's $1 billion less. And now fast forward to, what are we in, April now? All of a sudden, now they're telling their landlords, we're not going to pay April rent. And we may not pay May's rent. But if they had the $1 billion that the private equity firm took from last year, they'd be able to pay the rent.
So why is it their fault?
Well, whose fault?
Staples.
Staples is the company. The owners took the money, right?
I get it, but
so what ends up happening here is the private equity firms, Wall Street's trying to get rich. Everyone else is just trying to get their lunch money. So all those landlords that own that property, they now get stiff because of the greed, and I would argue the kleptocracy of that's not how you say it, but whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. But because of what those private equity guys did, now all of a sudden the landlords don't get their money. And if the landlords don't get their money for rent, right, then what ends up happening is the banks have a mortgage, right? So they owe the bank money, and you get this chain effect all because of the greed of this private equity firm. Best part, I'm willing to bet they're looking for government relief or assistance.
Unclear.
Watch. This is the socialist playbook. This is socialism. What happens is I take from me and then I go to the government and I ask them to bail me out when if instead I had just done the right thing, the money would be there to pay.
But nobody expected this would happen.
That's fine, but you still have the money. Where'd the $1 billion go? Did the partners put in their pocket and buy a nice house?
Lunch money.
Well, here's the way I would argue it, right? And this gets into the really nitty-gritty details of what's happening in the finance world right now. If Staples can't afford to pay their landlords and they default, that company should go into bankruptcy. The government should not bail them out.
Right.
Why should the government go in and bail out a company that the owners took $1 billion out and is unwilling to put the money back in the company?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It's because the company thinks the government's dumb. They literally are looking for the dumbest person in the room. They go and they say, I can't find any other investors to give me money. So let me go get the government to give me the money because the government will give me better terms than anyone else will give me. Stay alert out there. Stay alert. They ain't here to help you. Trust me. All right, let's move on. Oh, speaking of a true socialist, even better.
Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the presidential race, meaning that it's Trump versus Joe Biden.
What do you think of Bernie? Not like his political views, but just like
what? A little crazy to me.
You think he's a little crazy?
I don't get it.
Did you watch the Joe Rogan 2-hour thing with him?
I did not, but I hear that you are like amazed by him in that.
Well, okay. Well, amazed is a strong word. Basically, so one, I think everyone knew Bernie Sanders was not going to be the nomination, just the deck stacked against him. And that means that Joe Biden is now going to be the Democratic nominee to run against Trump, which basically means Trump just won. I think most people recognize that. With that said, though, Bernie Sanders is definitely portrayed in the media as very kind of crazy, out there, very extreme political views, etc. Very often seen as a socialist, etc. But he went on Joe Rogan and they did a 2-hour interview, I think it was. And the beauty of the Joe Rogan kind of podcast is that in that 2 hours, Joe just asked simple questions like, how do you think the United States can fund paying for everyone's healthcare? And Bernie didn't have to answer in like a 5-second kind of like a salacious clip for the news or on a debate stage. He could actually explain his thought process. And what I was impressed by was his ideas were very well thought out, and he came off way less crazy than he's normally portrayed in the media. That doesn't mean I agree with a lot of what he says, but he just came off much more reasonable and much more a higher ability to articulate his ideas, which I was pretty impressed with.
Yeah, I need to listen to that. Although maybe not anymore. But can I ask a dumb question?
Of course. I ask dumb questions all the time.
What happens what happens if a week before the election, Donald Trump goes, kind of don't want to run for president anymore? Does Joe Biden automatically become the president, or like do the Republicans have to find somebody?
Well, so again, I'm not an election expert, but basically if one candidate says I'm not going to run anymore at the last second and bows out, then there's still an election that's held. And in that election, you would get Joe Biden versus technically any other person over the age of 35 who's born in the United States could be the president, because you could write people in, right?
Right.
Now, of course, nobody believes a write-in candidate is going to win the presidency. But in the case that the Republican nominee decided not to run, which I don't think has ever happened once they're actually the nominee.
Man, this would be wild if that happened.
It would be wild. But I think what would quickly happen is somebody would step in and say, well, I'll take the Republican nomination, I'll run, etc. I mean, I don't understand why somebody would go that far and then bail out at the last second.
Because it's Donald Trump.
Well, that's one thing. And also probably more realistically is like a health issue, right? I mean, most of the people who are in politics, I think Joe Biden's like 77, Donald Trump's 74 years old. Like forget coronavirus type health stuff, just traditional, your mid 70-year-old person, right? Like of course, health complications, etc. And so, there could be a situation where somebody bails for health reasons, but I just don't foresee them being like, woke up today, had, some breakfast and decided I'm good. I'm going home.
I just wish our presidents were maybe a little bit younger.
Why? Do you think that younger people would bring fresher ideas?
I do. And I think they're a little bit more innovative and less kind of stuck in the past. Like, for example, did you read that profile on the Prime Minister of Finland is a 34-year-old woman, I believe. And she is the second youngest leader in the world. And why not?
Yeah, of course. Tulsi Gabbard, she's 38, I think, right? What's his name? Andrew Yang. I think he's like early 40s. Yeah. I think Pete Buttigieg or whatever his name. I think he was very young, right? And then obviously on the Republican side, there's plenty of people who could potentially do that at one day. But don't forget, guys, The Rock. He's coming. 2024 is our year. I'm telling you. When The Rock runs for president, everyone's going to be tweeting at me, be like, Pomp called it. Just saying.
Dwayne. Do you think Mark Cuban, he's kind of been positioning himself as like.
Mark Cuban could one day.
You think?
Yeah. But again, here's the thing, right? Is like Mark Cuban has done exactly what you would need to do in order to do that. Did you guys hear that? Polina's phone just went off. After she complained about my notifications, now her phone's going off. But what could happen is it's all a popularity contest now. It's all about who's got the most charisma, who can dominate. It's always been
kind of a popularity.
It has, but there's always been an element of like you almost needed the political blood, right? Like you needed the lineage. Yeah. You needed to be blessed by like the old guard. Obviously, Donald Trump blew that up. And so what it does is it opens the gate now for, could Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, right? Could Mark Cuban, could some of these other people start to step in with no political experience? Like, well, we just had one president, right? Yeah. Maybe he wants a second term, maybe he doesn't. But now that opens up the ability for other people to do that. And I think people will go to do that over time.
Well, guys, the day that they lift the requirement of needing to be born here and not be a naturalized citizen to run for president, I'm there.
It's pretty dumb. Isn't it pretty dumb that you have to be born in the United States?
Especially because, like, if you're not born in the United States, you have to go through such lengths to, like, prove that you're loyal to this country and you know its history, and you take this test, and then you, like, have these little flags that you wave, and then they're like, sorry, you can't run for president. Even though you're smart, beautiful,
President Polina would be the scariest thing in the world.
God, could you imagine? I would dress people with, hello, you cool cats and kittens.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the last topic. McDonald's. What's going on with Mickey D's?
McDonald's has been hit really hard because of coronavirus.
Impossible.
Because they're so global, right? So like France, Italy, Spain, like all completely.
How much did
same store sales fell 22% in March? Global sales.
3.4% in the first quarter, 22% in March. Look, McDonald's is the best restaurant in the world. Fact. You know why? Woo, Joe hitting us with the memes. Is that a meme or a photo?
That's DW from Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur. Like, I know Arthur. Yeah, I know Arthur.
He walks around like with his fist, like, can they see? Fist like this. And I'm like, you literally look like Arthur right now.
All right. So McDonald's, here's the big thing is every single restaurant I think is probably going through this, everyone from Starbucks, etc. Hopefully what is happening though, is that it's geographically controlled, meaning that in end of January, beginning of February, like they had to shut down all of their operations in China. Right. And then as the virus kind of spread through the world, now all of a sudden those operations are coming back online. Like I think Starbucks has started to open some of their restaurants in China, etc. I'm wondering if McDonald's is going to be able to do the same thing. Long story short, though, is I don't think that anyone's not going to go eat McDonald's after this. I don't think that anything is wrong with McDonald's. And I also don't think that the virus is going to last long enough for it to have a material impact. But there probably will be a couple of months of loss of revenue. Yeah. We're sitting at home. We haven't eaten McDonald's.
So this is what I thought was interesting. The CEO of McDonald's is cutting his salary in half until at least September 30th. And then you realize that his base salary was $1.25 million, excluding performance bonuses. And 4 of McDonald's top executives have also volunteered to reduce their salaries by 25%. What do you think of this? And do you think that it's going to be like irresponsible for CEOs to take a pay cut when they're laying all these people off? And
well, it would. I think the question you're trying to ask is, would it be irresponsible for the CEOs not to take a pay cut?
What did I say?
You said the opposite. It's okay. No problem. So here's the two things I think. One is if you take a 50% pay cut from $1.25 million, it's really not that material to the operations of McDonald's. It's like a drop in the bucket. It's more the symbolism of hey, I'm going to take a pay cut, right, rather than just lay off all these employees. 2, though, is if you think about what you want, it's kind of like a doctor. Like when you go to the doctor, what do you want? You don't want to go to the 99-cent doctor. You want to go to the $100 an hour doctor who's super expensive because they're the best in the world.
One time you took me to like a 99-cent doctor. You remember that?
I don't think those exist. Okay, but same thing with the CEO. Like the way I think about it is if you have a big multinational corporation, I'm not one of these people who rails against compensation because you actually want the person who says, it's not worth my time unless I get paid an outrageous amount because I'm worth that. Like I'm the best in the world. So therefore you should pay me X, right? And so the same thing happens here, but the difference is in peacetime versus wartime.
Yeah.
In peacetime, you don't necessarily need the best in the world, right? You just need a pretty good, like if you're running McDonald's, as long as you're not a complete idiot, you should be able to continue to grow sales and like do things, right?
There was a CEO in their past that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure there's idiots that mess it up, whatever. But for the most part, like it's a machine. There's a lot of checks and balances in place. You've got a good executive team, like all that kind of stuff, right? One person, it's really hard to like completely mess things up with the board of directors, etc. In wartime, it's the exact opposite. You need leadership and you need the best leadership you can find. And therefore, what you actually want is when you go into the wartime or the financial crisis, you should be able to pay top dollar, be willing to pay top dollar to get the absolute best person you can find.
But the difference is he's already there. And as a leader, he wants to, like you said, it's symbolic. He wants to show like, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut. I know we're all suffering. Like, I'm not going to pay myself an insane amount of money, even though he still stands to get these performance bonuses.
Look, there's like a honor among warriors, right? To some degree. And if you think of it from that standpoint, like what's the most honorable thing that like a warrior could do in this scenario? It would be to say, hey, I'll give up 100% of my cash salary, right? So I'm not going to take any of the cash. I'm instead going to take all of my compensation for the next 2 years in stock, and I won't sell it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it would just be like, damn, look.
It's like a fate as
it's a symbol.
Show,
I'm planting a flag in the ground. I believe in this company. I believe we're going to weather this storm. I believe we're going to come out of this stronger than not. And I'm going to put my financial skin in the game in doing that. And so if you structure it that way, that would be incredible. But at the same time, like, look, a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh my God, that guy gets paid $1.25 million. There's a lot of executives in corporate America.
That's 2 commas for this.
But there's a lot of executives in corporate America that actually have a lifestyle that matches their salary. So it's not like this guy used to get paid, $50,000, then $100,000, $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, $1.25 million, and never changed his lifestyle. Instead, what actually most likely happened, not to pick on this guy, but just in general, is they bought a bigger house, they bought a car, they bought this, they got more debt, etc. So what I'm saying is they financially can't give up 100% of their salary because they have expenses because they lived above their means, blah, 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 whatever. And so what ends up happening is it's just a very complex situation where nobody expected this to happen. And now people are having to make hard decisions.
I do think that this is going to be a real, a lot of people are going to realize, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't live above our means, given that anything could happen at any moment.
An entire generation is learning about a strong balance sheet right now and how important that is.
Strong balance sheets. Is that your platform if you run for president?
No, I'm not running for president. Are you kidding? I would last 2 seconds in the Oval Office.
That's true.
I literally would be like, they'd be like, sir, you can't say it, but I'm out.
Okay, sir, you can't wear black t-shirts every day.
Could a president win without wearing a tie every day? Like they do it on the campaign trail sometimes now. It became cool. Like Obama made it cool to roll your sleeves up, all that kind of stuff. But like, could a president actually do it without a button down or like a business shirt?
If like Zuck ran for president.
I don't think it's possible.
Really?
No.
Because you don't look professional enough.
Yeah, it's not professional enough.
Well, Polina Marinova for president, I would wear all sorts of suits and
ties. You have a Canadian tuxedo on right now. Let's be serious.
I would not run for Canada, but I'm positioning don't mess with my thing.
All right, okay. That's awesome. What else? Anything else? Any closing words for the people?
The people are my friends.
Tell them about the comments, how you appreciate all their comments.
Oh, I love the comments. Look at that one.
Crypto Roots, do I ever change clothes? Yeah, dog, listen, I got a bunch of black t-shirts. I got a hat because I haven't gotten a haircut. If possibly by the time we get out of quarantine, I may even cut my hair into a mullet, but I wear the same black t-shirt. And I'll let you guys in on a secret. Don't tell anyone. I have a pair of sweatpant shorts that I've been wearing every single day of quarantine. I'm now going on, 17, 18 days?
I don't know.
Yes, I got sweatpants shorts on right now while I'm coming to you live from the kitchen. Polina hates it. All right, guys, appreciate it. That's lunch money for today. Do you have anything else?
No, be kind to your friends, though.
That's all.
And vote for me if I ever run.
Be kind to your friends. All right, that's lunch money for today. While Wall Street's trying to get rich, the rest of us just trying to get our lunch money right. And we will be coming to you noon-ish because we don't have our shit together before noon, afternoon, right at noon, or at 5 p.m. Today, we're actually recording this at like 1:15, so we're really behind, but I appreciate you guys watching every day. As long as Polina continues to be on her best behavior, she will be a co-host. If at some point she disrupts us, has notifications go off again, breaks the dress code, or just generally annoys the shit out of all of us, we will replace her. So thanks so much.
You have no one else here.
I'll do it with an imaginary person. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow.